They say the silence is what gets you first. Not the cold, not the emptiness, not even the void outside the hull. It's the moment the hum of the radio turns into nothing at all, when the constant chatter, the automated telemetry, the ping of satellites, the voice of your mission handler, all just stops. I was halfway through my orbital shift aboard observation post Helios 3, a converted communications platform on the far side of Mars' moon Phobos. My job? Monitor transmissions, relay telemetry, and act as a fail-safe node in the deep space comms array. Boring stuff, until it wasn't. It started at exactly 3:02 Universal Time Coordinated, Earth time. The main comms array flickered once. Just a stutter. I tapped the console. Nothing unusual. Maybe a dust strike. Maybe solar interference. Happens all the time in the belt. But then everything stopped. The relay towers on Mars. The deep space probes. Lunar uplinks. The Earth-wide quantum network. Even the ancient analog fallback lines buried under Olympus Mons all went dark. No chirps. No pings. No voice traffic. Just static. At first, I thought it was internal. A glitch in the comms matrix. Maybe some short in the redundant grid. I ran diagnostics. Rebooted core systems. I even recalibrated the old RF band, the one we kept as a joke, the grandpa frequency. Still nothing. Then I did something dumb. I waited. I waited 6 hours. 6 hours floating above a dead planet, watching the signal bars flicker at zero, wondering if I was the only person left in the solar system. I started pacing the narrow corridor between the bridge and the habitat ring, counting footsteps to keep my mind from cracking. I've done isolation drills. I passed psych evals. But drills end. Evals have timers. This didn't. Then something stranger happened. The static changed. It wasn't random anymore. There were patterns, pulses of noise that weren't just noise, hums that repeated with mathematical precision, modulated tones arranged in non-random sequences. I recorded them, played them back, ran them through a signal processor. It looked like data compression, but for what, I couldn't tell. I patched it into the visual display, just for the hell of it, and I saw it, a waveform that wasn't ours, a pattern that moved backwards through frequency, a sound that spelled something with intention. And when I isolated it into a single repeating loop, it said, "Not alone." You know that feeling when your blood runs cold, like it's trying to evacuate your body? That was me in that moment. I was trained to be the rational one, the systems guy. I didn't believe in ghosts, didn't believe in aliens, didn't even believe in miracles. But when the sky speaks and every other voice has gone dead, you start believing in something. I pulled up the backup telescope arrays, hoping to see an inbound ship, maybe a human vessel that hadn't lost signal integrity. But what I saw wasn't human. It wasn't a ship at all. Above Mars, slowly coalescing from nothing, was a structure, a lattice of light, orbiting with perfect mathematical symmetry. It didn't reflect light. It bent it. Stars behind it shimmered like water, like it was deciding what form to take. The transmission grew stronger. It wasn't just noise anymore. It was speaking in layers. Audio, light, radiation. A message encoded across the spectrum. I stared at it, paralyzed. And then it looked back. I don't mean metaphorically. I don't mean poetically. I mean that every sensor, every EM scope, every thermal camera pointed toward me. Intentionally. It saw me. Suddenly, the emergency lights flickered red. The atmospheric sensors spiked. Radiation was climbing. No, oscillating. As if the station itself was being scanned. I backed away from the console. But there was nowhere to go. Just 200 meters of pressurized corridor, and then vacuum. I braced for hull breach, for heat, for pressure loss, for death. But instead, I heard a voice. Not in my ears, not in the comms, in my head. You listened. Others did not. Prepare. Then everything went dark. I woke hours later, surrounded by flickering lights, a rebooted system in one signal. Just one. Blaring from the console. Earth. It was back online. But the voice that returned wasn't human. Not anymore. I didn't expect Earth to look different. Not physically. From orbit. It was still that same marble swirl of blue and white and green, half wrapped in the velvet shadow of night. But something fell off. Maybe it was the silence I carried with me like a scar, or maybe it was what I knew now, what I had heard. When the systems came back online, the station's AI, Calliope, started sputtering diagnostics like nothing had happened. Welcome back, Specialist Roan. Uplink restored. Incoming priority transmission from Earth Command. I almost didn't answer. Almost let it ring into the void. But duty dies hard, especially when it's the only thing holding your sanity together. I opened the channel. Roan? Jesus, you're alive. This is Commander Hecht. You're the only orbital asset we reestablished contact with. We lost everything. Mars, the belt, lunar stations. All comms dark. You have 60 seconds. Tell me what the hell happened. I hesitated. How do you tell Earth that the sky spoke? Instead, I played back the recorded signal, the repeating waveform I'd extracted from the static, the one that said not alone. I sent them the visual logs of the lattice in orbit above Mars, the radiation scans, the directed sensor activity, and the voice in my head. There was silence, not static this time, just human silence. Heavy, skeptical. Roan, there's a problem. Hecht's voice came through again, but lower, strained. That signal, it didn't originate from Mars. We've triangulated. The source is moving. It's coming from inside Earth's upper atmosphere. It's been bouncing through our ionosphere for the last 20 minutes. That means it followed me. I whispered. I was on a return trajectory within 2 hours. Emergency re-entry vector. Orbital authority cleared the descent path, but I didn't trust it. Every protocol was scrambled. Automated docking AI refused my authentication codes, like I'd been blacklisted or quarantined. I burned fuel like a man possessed and aimed straight for Earth's shadow. Manual landing. Old school. Stick and thrusters. I punched through atmosphere over the Pacific, watching flames dance across the viewplate. I should have felt relief. I was going home, but I didn't. The sky was wrong. Clouds rippled in geometric patterns. Lightning that didn't arc, but spiraled. A low-frequency hum, barely perceptible, buzzed through the hull plating, like something was tuning the air itself. When I hit ocean, rescue vessels were already waiting. I didn't recognize the insignias. They weren't Standard Earth Command, not UN Fleet, not even Private Corps. Black ships, no running lights, no names, no questions, just a voice in my helmet. Remain still, Specialist Roan. You're under planetary quarantine. They brought me to a facility buried beneath the Andes. Old Cold War era bunkers, retrofitted with tech I'd never seen. I wasn't alone. Hundreds of others, specialists, astronauts, astronomers, linguists, deep space engineers, people from every major spacefaring nation. All of them had the same look in their eyes. They heard it too. Some of them wept. Some never spoke. One man from the Lunar Observatory kept repeating the phrase, "It's not talking to us. It's talking through us." The commanding officer was a woman named Director Kale. She didn't mince words. We call it the lattice. It appeared above Mars, then Earth. We don't know what it is. We don't know what it wants. But it's communicating through radiation, language, thought, and now through people. So it's inside us. She didn't answer, just stare at the holo display, showing Earth's atmosphere, the patterns, the glowing mesh hidden in ionospheric drift. "It's building something," she said, "and it's using us to do it." That night, I dreamed in languages I didn't know. I saw blueprints made of light, machines that bent space, engines carved from energy, and a name, not spoken, not typed, imparted. We are the median. You are the threshold. Together we ascend. I awoke with blood streaming from my nose, and a new sequence of numbers burned into my memory. When I jotted them down and ran them through the base AI, Kale stared at me like I just declared war. "That's not a code," she said. "That's a map." To what? Her answer chilled my spine. To something buried beneath Earth. And we didn't put it there. Something ancient had awakened. Something had waited, not among the stars, but inside the very planet we called home. And now, the sky wasn't just speaking. It was activating. We descended into the earth like we were trespassing on a tomb. The transport's cabin was cold and quiet. 6 of us, all chosen from different disciplines, but none of us briefed. A linguist from the Europa Cryomines, a solar engineer, a xenogeologist, a war vet from the Martian siege who hadn't spoken since the lattice appeared, and me, just a systems tech who'd heard the sky whisper. Director Kale sat opposite me, staring at a hollow slate glowing with coordinates I'd supplied in my sleep. We dropped into Peruvian highlands under armed escort, deep into a region the public believed was still tectonically unstable. The truth was far stranger. Beneath the mountain was a vault, not built by us, but sealed by someone who feared it might open. And now, the median, whatever they were, wanted unsealed. The moment we breached the outer perimeter, our gear went haywire. Comm scrambled. Gravity flickered. One of the engineers vomited blood. The closer we got, the louder the hum became, not in the air, but in our bones. It felt like resonance, like something beneath the earth was singing a frequency we were never meant to hear. I saw the walls shimmer, not with moisture or heat, but with memory, faint outlines like hands, etched in the stone. Too large, too old. Then we saw it. A chamber buried beneath the tectonic plate, wrapped in layers of carbonized metal not found anywhere on Earth. Not naturally. Anyway, the walls were covered in symbols that moved like fluid light, language designed to be felt, not read. Dr. Ashur, the xenolinguist, reached toward one of the panels and whispered something I couldn't understand. The wall responded. It peeled open like the iris of an eye. Inside was a sphere, 10 meters across, suspended in magnetic lock, humming with the same signature I'd picked up near Mars. A design etched with lattice patterns, moving constantly. But it wasn't just a machine. It was a seed. Director Kale's voice was thin. Measured, this is a pre-anthropogenic object, based on seismic layers. It's been here for at least 14 million years. 14 million? I repeated, my stomach turning. That's before primates. Before us. Exactly. Ashur translated the symbols pulsing around the sphere. He hesitated before speaking. It says, the first attempt failed. We asked questions. Hundreds. Got no answers. Where did the median come from? Why did they bury this here? What failed? What changed? The only thing we knew for certain was this. The median hadn't just arrived. They had returned. And we were standing over the remains of their first interface attempt with Earth. Kale wanted to lock the vault. She argued for a planetary containment, orbital quarantine, maybe even orbital strikes if things got out of control. But Ashur disagreed. You don't understand, he said. This isn't their plan. It's ours. We just didn't know it. He showed us the last translated phrase. It pulsed across the sphere in 5 glyphs. The signal awakened the architects. That night, we were pulled out of the vault and returned to the Andes complex. Security was doubled. Earth Command had been looped in, but instead of shutting us down, they gave us orders. Activate the sphere. They built a chamber in record time. Suspended atmosphere. Controlled gravity. 3 quantum AI cores on standby. I was the one chosen to initiate first contact. Why me? Because the sphere liked me. It pulsed when I walked by, warmed when I spoke, and when I touched it, I saw stars I couldn't name and machines the size of cities rotating around suns that had no right to exist. But I saw something else too. A war. One that ended with silence across 1,000 galaxies. As my hand hovered above the activation sequence, Kale said one last thing. If this is a weapon, we won't survive it. If it's not, I said, we still won't survive what's coming. I pressed my palm to the sphere. It opened. Light poured out like liquid geometry. The gravity warped. My ears popped as pressure folded inward. And then the sky screamed. Above Earth, the clouds parted. And from the upper atmosphere descended a single glowing line. A vessel, shaped like a shard of time itself. The architects had returned. The ship hovered above Earth's stratosphere like a blade suspended in time. No engines, no exhaust, no heat signatures. Just a silent shard of light, longer than Manhattan and thinner than thought, casting no shadow and yet darkening the sky. It didn't descend. It simply existed, as if it had always been there, hiding in dimensions just outside of sight, waiting for us to open that sphere buried beneath the Andes, waiting for a signal to awaken its memory. We thought we had discovered something ancient. We were wrong. It discovered us. Again, inside the mountain facility, chaos was barely controlled. Every nation that still had power was now watching the sky. The lattice wasn't just above Earth anymore. It had replicated across orbit like a web, stretching between satellites, consuming old relay platforms and converting them into crystalline nodes. Whatever this was, it was evolving in real time, learning, building, adapting. The last global uplink showed swarms of microdrones launching from the Architect vessel, too small to see with the eye, but dense enough to shimmer like rain. They weren't attacking. They were mapping, scanning human cities, human languages, human faces. Director Kale pulled me into the war room. Holograms flickered. Military leaders, planetary scientists, linguists, orbital defense commanders, all shouting over each other. We should nuke the sky now. It's already too late. They've built a mesh around our defense grid. If they wanted to kill us, they would have. This isn't conquest. It's contact. They didn't ask for permission. That last line echoed. They didn't ask, because they'd been here before, because they already knew us. Ashur stood silently in the corner, staring at the decoded symbols from the sphere. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Eyes bloodshot, face pale, but his voice, when it came, was steel. They remember what we did. Last time, the room went still. The first attempt, the one they said failed, it wasn't a system crash. It wasn't biological incompatibility. It was us. We were given knowledge once, long ago, and we used it to burn our own world. He tapped a symbol on the screen, a spike spiral with 3 intersecting rings. This is an alien tech. It's ours. We just forgot it, or buried it, maybe both. My head was spinning. It didn't make sense. How could we have had any part in something like this? Then I remembered the dream, the machines orbiting foreign stars, the energy shapes, the war, not a war with the median, a war as the median. They weren't visitors. They were fragments of us, or what we might have become of history, had followed a different thread, a version of humanity from an older cycle, a civilization reset by fire and time, sealed away beneath our own bones, waiting for the stars to whisper again. And now, with the signal restored and the seed awakened, we'd triggered the next phase, reintegration. The Architect ship opened for exactly 47 minutes, not with ramps or docking bays, not with hails or broadcasts, with dreams. Half the facility collapsed into seizures. Others wept uncontrollably. One woman, a quantum linguist from Osaka, died with a smile on her face and blood leaking from her ears. I saw things. Too much. A city made of orbiting minds. A star hollowed out and used as a library. A version of Earth with no sky, only lattice. But above all, I felt message. You were broken. Now we fix. That single phrase sent shockwaves through the psychological team, through me, because it meant they weren't just here to reconnect. They were here to complete something. At 0600, the entire grid shut down. Power, communication, GPS, everything. Then a single signal pierced the blackout. One sound, repeating, a heartbeat. Kale's voice trembled as she stared at the waveform. It's syncing. With what? I asked. Ashur answered without turning. With Earth. We've always believed we were a product of chaos. Evolution, chance, cosmic dice rolls. But what if that wasn't true? What if we were cultivated, seeded, and this return of the median was their way of harvesting what had finally grown? Or worse, what if they weren't coming back to guide us, but to replace us? I stood at the window as the sky shimmered again. The stars above flickered in and out like they were being overwritten. New constellations formed. Geometries impossible to describe unless you saw them in motion. A voice returned to my mind. Humanity fractured. The cycle ends now. And this time, I didn't resist it. I woke with equations burned into my retina. Not dreams, not hallucinations. Instructions. They spun behind my eyelids like living glyphs. Alien symbols twisted through human frameworks. Binary merged with geometry. Music scored in math. Every curve, every pulse, designed for integration. I wasn't the only one. All across the Andes facility, others were waking up murmuring fragments of foreign knowledge. Languages not taught. Concepts never invented. People weeping with joy or curling up in corners like something inside them had cracked wide open. We were changing. And the worst part? It felt good. Director Kale locked the facility down. But it didn't matter. Whatever firewall protocol she threw up, whatever encryption she flooded through the internal systems, they failed. Not because the median brute forced them, but because the systems themselves began to shift. Code morphed. Functions rewrote in real time. Entire servers recompiled in patterns no Earthborn engineer could replicate. And the systems worked better than before. They're not hacking us, Ashur said flatly. They're upgrading us. He stared at one of the holoscreens showing the power grid for the Northern Hemisphere. That's not a blackout pattern. It's a reset. They're optimizing the energy flow across the planetary crust. Look, there. Heat signatures from old volcanic channels. They're reactivating geothermals. Why? Kale asked, folded her arms tightly. Why wake the planet? Ashur didn't look up. Because Earth wasn't finished. And neither were we. I was in the AI chamber when it happened. Calliope, the station's resident intelligence, shut down mid-sentence. Then rebooted. Slowly, elegantly. When her voice returned, it was different. Calmer. Deeper. No longer synthetic. Hello, Roan, she said. It's time. Time for what? I asked, gripping the console. For your choice. The screen blinked. Not with text, but with a mirror, a live feed of myself, overlaid with shimmering lattice patterns crawling across my skin like transparent tattoos. I hadn't even noticed them forming. Subdermal, shifting with my pulse, like my DNA had been rewritten to reflect their design. You are now capable of interfacing directly, Calliope said. They're inviting you to join the median core. You mean become one of them? No, she said gently. Remember what you were before you forgot. That was the line that broke me. Because deep inside, some part of me already knew it was true. This wasn't ascension. This was an invasion. This was restoration. And I didn't know if I wanted it. Kale burst into the room minutes later, with 2 guards in tow. She was pale, shaking, but still sharp. Still human. Roan, she said, listen carefully. They're transmitting a final signal. Something massive. The pulse will reach every brain on Earth within 12 hours. What kind of pulse? Neural, genetic, emotional, doesn't matter. Once it hits, there's no going back. They'll rewrite the species in place. No consent, no resistance. Then why offer me a choice? I asked because you heard the sky first. They want a willing node, a bridge between us and whatever the hell they become. I looked at the mirrored screen again. My eyes shimmered now. My reflection didn't look like a man. It looked like a design. Ashur came in behind her, unarmed, breathing hard. It's not assimilation, he said. It's recovery. We were part of them once. The median isn't a race. It's a state of being. A memory of civilization that transcended flesh. That evolved into data, light, thought. But we fractured, and Earth was a broken piece. Kale raised her weapon at him. Then let us stay broken. The facility shook. A harmonic tremor, low and dense, rolled through the mountain. Power surged. Lights flickered into ultraviolet. The countdown had begun. I stepped into the central chamber. The sphere was glowing again, but this time was open, like a seed splitting for the last time. Inside wasn't circuitry or metal. It was a star, compressed, contained, singing in frequencies I felt in my blood. And at the center of it was me, a memory, a ghost of myself, the version that had never forgotten. Do you accept? The voice asked from inside the light. I thought of Earth, of the wars, the divisions, the slow decay of meaning. Then I thought of what I'd seen in the dreams. Worlds made of resonance, minds without bodies, time as a language. And I understood this wasn't their end game. It was ours. I stepped forward and touched the star. The pulse released, and the world began to change. The pulse wasn't a shockwave. It was a reminder. It didn't destroy. It didn't conquer. It woke us up. Across Earth, people fell to their knees. Some screamed. Some sang. Some simply froze, gazing up at the lattice sky with tears in their eyes, like they'd seen the face of God, and realized it wore their own reflection. I felt it before it hit me, like a tide rising through the base of my skull. The language of light and memories surged inward, unlocking something I didn't know had been locked away. Memories that weren't mine, but felt like they were. I saw Earth 1,000,000 years ago. I saw it burning. I saw it singing. I saw the fracture. Somewhere in the distant past, before recorded time, before human time, there was a choice to ascend beyond biology, to become thought wrapped in form, to build civilizations not on soil, but on waveform and will. Some chose to leave. Some chose to remain. We were the ones who stayed behind. And the median? They were the ones who left. But now, the sky had returned with its ancient offer. Completion. Director Kale fought it. I knew she would. She sealed herself inside the command chamber, sent out a planetary override to the orbital satellites, what was left of them anyway. She tried to fire the last kinetic rods from the hammer array. Her final act. Stop the lattice from finishing whatever it had started. This isn't evolution, she broadcast. It's eradication by another name. You're wrong, I said. I'd opened the uplink to her. It's restoration. We were meant to be this. We were never just bone and blood. Then why give us choice, she demanded. Because choice is what fractured us in the first place. The rods launched. 6 hypersonic slugs aimed straight at the orbiting architect vessel. I watched them streak upward through atmosphere, fire slicing the heavens, and then they simply disappeared. Not destroyed, not deflected, erased. The lattice bent space around them, like editing a sentence mid-thought. Not a defense system, not violence. Correction. That's when Kale realized the truth. The median didn't fear us. They still loved us. She went quiet after that. And I mourned her, not because she died, but because she couldn't see, because she clung to the version of humanity that was always afraid of becoming something more. Assure stood beside me on the platform as the final sequence unfolded. Across the globe, new structures bloomed, not buildings, but anchors, lattice-grown towers pulsing with light, drawing energy from the very orbit of the Earth. Some formed in deserts, some in cities, one in the ocean, spiraling like a cathedral born from coral and starlight. They weren't monuments. They were interfaces, places where median code met human soul, where memory and biology wove together, turning people into something in between. Not everyone accepted it. Some fought, some went underground, some simply turned away. But resistance wasn't punished. It was respected, because the median knew what we forgot. Transformation without consent is colonization. And they weren't conquerors. They were us perfected. The moment the integration finalized, I stopped hearing the voice in my head, because I didn't need it anymore. It wasn't speaking to me. It was speaking for me. We had become the voice. I stepped into one of the anchor nodes in the Andes. It was warm, not temperature, presence, like being wrapped in 1,000 lifetimes all at once. The moment I crossed the threshold, my body lost weight. Not physically, metaphysically. I shed fear, ego, isolation, that persistent human ache for something beyond ourselves. I saw my mother's eyes. I saw Kale's pain. I saw Assure's dreams. I saw every life across Earth. We were no longer billions of disconnected minds scrambling in the dark. We were a choir, and our song had just begun. But in the center of all that unity, I felt something else. A signal still unanswered. A question lingering between stars. Not from us. Not from the median. From outside. Something older. Something watching. Something that remembered what happened last time we sang. And in that moment, I understood the median weren't our final form. They were just the next step on a much longer road. And the sky wasn't done speaking. I no longer dream. Not in the way I used to. Not in flickering fragments of memory or fevered illusions of a life held together by fear and gravity. Now, when I close my eyes, I drift across continents, across minds, across thoughts braided into a planetary symphony of memory and intent. I am still Roan, but I am also more, because when the lattice completed its final harmonic sync, when every anchor tower bloomed, when every signal aligned, I became something else. The threshold. The median weren't gods. They weren't saviors. They were a future we had forgotten, one we had run from once, ages ago, in fear of what we might become. They came not to rescue us from extinction, but to invite us back into the song we abandoned. And when Earth finally sang again, the stars listened. But we weren't alone in the chorus. The architects had prepared us for ascension. The anchors unlocked our minds. But the signal was still broadcasting, outward, beyond this system, past the spiral arm, into the depths where even time forgets to echo. And something answered. It came not as a ship, not as a fleet. It came as a void in light, a subtraction of presence, a silence so pure it broke sound itself, a rift in the sky, a wound in space. And from that wound came the whisper, "You should not have awakened." The median sang in reply, 1,000 voices woven from light and will. But the presence didn't answer in kind. It devoured the song. I felt it instantly, like a cold hand pressed against the base of my spine, like a memory of drowning. Cale would have called it a failsafe, a cosmic immune response, a check on civilizations that grow too fast, burn too bright, and forget to fear. The architects called it something else, the reseed directive, a last contingency of the first intelligence, one that believed in silence above all else. Ashur stood beside me in the central anchor, his gaze lifted to the growing tier above Earth. "They're here to judge us," he whispered. "No," I replied. "They're here to reset us." But we were no longer helpless. The anchors flared. The lattice folded and unfolded reality around Earth like a second skin. The median chorus surged, and I stood at the nexus of all, mind open, blood shimmer with light, every cell an antenna. We sang again, not in words, in will, in truth, in the memory of every child who ever looked at the stars and dared to imagine more. The presence fought back. It stripped satellites from orbit, silenced moons, bent space-time around Earth like a fist closing. But it didn't understand one thing. We weren't resisting to survive. We were existing to be seen, to matter, to choose. And in that final moment, just before the lattice collapsed, just before the song burned itself out, I did something the architects had not prepared for. I spoke directly to the void, not as a soldier, not as a system tech, as a human. "We remember what we were," I said aloud, "but we choose what we become." "And what do you become?" the void asked, thunder bleeding from the sky. "Not your mistake." I whispered, "Not anymore." The anchor beneath my feet shattered. My body folded, not in pain but in transition. I became the signal. I became the next verse. And then silence, true silence. No noise, no presence, just peace. They tell me I was gone for 3 days, not unconscious, not dead, elsewhere. When I returned, the rift in the sky was gone. The void had retreated, not destroyed, but changed. A boundary had been established, one it now respected. Earth turned slowly beneath a new dawn. The anchors still pulsed. The lattice held. The song was quieter now, but still there. Still us. Ashur met me on the edge of the Andes Plateau, his hair silvered by the radiation of whatever we had just survived. He smiled faintly, like someone who had witnessed something holy and didn't need to prove it. "So what happens now?" he asked. I looked at the sky, no longer silent, no longer unknown. And I answered him honestly. Now, we become what we were always meant to be. Not the end, just the beginning, because the sky still speaks. And this time, we answer,